I don't think it's a pop to say that USA against Japan was one of the best matches in the VNL so far, and it was definitely one of the best matches of week 2. It was so good that I went back and watched the beginning of it because it was going on at the same time as Canada against Bulgaria, and I was mostly watching Canada versus Bulgaria while doing a live stream and kind of had USA versus Japan going on the side, but I really wasn't watching it. But the way that match ended, and after looking into some of the stats, I knew I had to go back and watch it, and that's exactly what I did. And man, I honestly think it was the best match of week 2 and probably one of the best matches so far in the VNL. So my question is, was that a preview of the final? Is that a match we're going to be seeing on August 2nd in Ningbo, China? I mean, I know if you're watching this, you're probably hoping yes, but I honestly think there's going to be some good arguments for the US and Japan to meet each other again in the VNL final. And now for those of you who didn't watch this game, I suggest maybe you go back and do, because this one was fantastic. It was a low error, highly offensive game where some of the stars were out to play. I thought Ran Takahashi was fantastic. He's been, in my opinion, the best player in the VNL so far this year. And if you know anything about me, that's not just pandering to the Japanese. And if you know anything about me and my history talking about Ran Takahashi, you know that's not just me pandering to the Japanese audience. But on the other hand, I think you have an American team that is playing incredibly well together right now. And you're seeing what this team could potentially look like moving on into 2028 when they host the Olympics in LA. And just looking at some of the overall stats from this match too, you can see how close it was. The US narrowly had the advantage in attack, 69-66. They also had the advantage in blocks. I mean, that one's to be expected, 9-4. Japan had the slight advantage in aces, 4-3. And then the US made just a few more errors, just 4 more errors, 25-29 errors. That is not a lot for a 5-set match. And also let's remember that it is hot AF. And this one was a match where you could tell that both teams were really suffering because the elements. Usually the elements are a beach volleyball thing, but it was very much an indoor volleyball thing in this matchup. Right out of the gate, I thought the US dominated. They were all over the place in set number 1. Their side-out offense was super clean, and they were just dominating. As a team, they hit 62% with a 53% efficiency in set number 1. They had a couple of blocks and an ace as well. They were just dominant and looked squeaky clean in set number 1, whereas Japan kind of took them a little while to get going. And if you look at some of the numbers here, Ran was only 2 for 5. Ishikawa, who got the start, was only 2 for 6. I mean, thank goodness Miyaura was there to keep them alive at going 6 for 10, but still, the Japanese offense was, I'm not going to say struggling, but only 47 with a 33% efficiency just wasn't good enough to keep up with the high-powered American offense in the first set. In set number 2 is where this game opened up quite a bit. And it's not that the Americans were bad. I thought they were actually pretty good and pretty steady throughout the second set, but the Japanese really turned on. Their offense really opened up. Ran was outstanding. He went 9 for 14, hitting a 64% with the 57% efficiency. And overall, this team was just incredible. They hit 60% with a 54% efficiency as a team in set number 2. I mean, Miyaura, who was also fantastic, he also scored 20 points in this match. He was 5 for 10. And you could tell that Japan was here to play. I love how they bounced back emotionally after, once again, the US really dominated in set number 1. Set number 3 is where the balance of power really swung back to the US side. Kind of for the last time in the match. Jake Haynes was absolutely outstanding. He scored 10 points in this one. He was 7 for 10 with a 70% efficiency, which is absolutely insane. He had 2 blocks and an ace, and it really was the Jake Haynes show. And I mean, the rest of the team was cooking as well. DeFalco was 2 for 3 in the third, and Anderson was 3 for 5. But a lot of the struggles in the third set came down to, once again, Japan's offense just wasn't looking good. There was a lot of issues out there, and as a team, they were 35% with a 19% efficiency. And if you look, I mean, Ran 2 for 5, 0% efficiency. Ishikawa got no sets. He got served off the court. They brought in Otsuka. Otsuka, not great either. He was 2 for 12 with a 0% efficiency. And if it wasn't for the US making more errors, you know, they missed a few serve and they also had a few net touches in the third set, this one was going to get away quickly from the Japanese. But luckily, for set number 4, this is where Japan made a few substitutions. You know, instead of Ishikawa, they brought in Tomita to start the fourth, and he's the one who started the rest of the time. They brought in Nishimoto partway through the third. He started the fourth too in place of Yamauchi. And then you also surprisingly had Mototoki Airo come in during the third and start the fourth. And I mean, much to Japanese fans' surprise, that was actually one of the catalysts for the Japanese win. I thought Airo was actually pretty good down the stretch for this Japanese team. And then on top of the changes in the Japanese roster, it's also where their offense started to slow down, starting with Jake Haynes, who had really been the focal point for them. He went 4 for 8 in the fourth, which isn't terrible at all, but with the 0% efficiency, that's really where, he started getting blocked by Japan, and it's really where they started slowing down altogether. Now, the U.S. only made 8 unforced hitting errors throughout this match in total, which is pretty damn good over a 5-set match. Once again, considering the elements going on, but 3 of them happened in that 4th set. And the unraveling of the U.S. offense is also at the same time where Japan really started going and started mostly focusing on Ran and Miyaura, and Airo was just dishing left to right on this one. Ran went 4 for 6 with a 66% efficiency. Miyaura went 4 for 8 with a 37% efficiency, and they were really just able to capitalize on an American team that were really starting to slow down. Ran also, he had 9 in the second, 7 in the fourth, and this really continued into the 5th set, where I really thought the difference was the fact that the U.S. was still trying to run things through Haynes, and Haynes was a combined 6 for 13 in the 4th and the 5th, but he had a 0% efficiency, whereas Ran was a combined 9 for 15 in the final 2 sets and only got blocked once. And in that 5th set, he was outstanding. He was 5 for 9 overall with an ace that really helped clinch things for Japan down the stretch. That gave them the 4-point lead. I also thought Larry was really good in the 5th set as well. He didn't get set at all, but his block towards the end of the match really helped seal the deal. And one of his block touches earlier on the set is what helped them create a little bit of separation as well. And it just seemed that Japan, who were a little bit fresher, having brought in some subs, in the 3rd and the 4th, were just able to outlast the U.S. and remain perfect in the VNL. And at this point, they are the only perfect team. And as I talked about it, Ran Takahashi was outstanding in this match. He led the match with 26 points. He was 22 for 39 overall, hitting a 56% with a 46% efficiency. He also had 2 blocks and 2 aces. Miyaura was also outstanding, not so much from the baseline. He made 5 errors on 14 attempts and had no aces, but he was 20 for 41 with a 39% efficiency. And on the US side, they were really playing that team game, right? You had 4 different players in double digits, led by Jake Haynes, who I thought was outstanding throughout the first 3 sets of play. And that's really what we've come to expect from Jake Haynes throughout this VNL too. I think he has been so good, and I don't think there's any doubt who is the guy on the right side now for the United States. But as you see, Haynes here, 21 for 36, and pretty much all of those errors and all those times he got blocked were in the 4th and the 5th set. I just think he got a little tired throughout that match, but you had Haynes going 21 for 36, DeFalco going 15 for 31, Anderson going 15 for 27, Jeff Jendrick 8 for 13, and of course Merrick McHenry was 8 for 15 with 4 blocks. Definitely was a bit of a mismatch when McHenry was playing in the front row against Nishimoto, but still down the stretch, Japan just looked a little bit fresher and was able to get the job done in gut check time. Now, when we look at the standings after week number 2, Japan and the US are 1-2 in the VNL. Japan, the only team to go undefeated so far. They are 8-0, whereas the U.S. is in second spot at 6-2, although they have 19 points, 2 points ahead of Poland. And what's even more impressive from Japan is that they have played some of the best teams in this tournament right now, right? They have played a lot of playoff teams. They've won against Ukraine. They beat Poland. They beat Slovenia, right? They beat France in another epic 5-setter. 3 5-setters to end the week for Japan. They have been battling. Now, it is important to note that their matches against Ukraine, Poland, and Slovenia were in week 1 before any of those rosters made some changes, but still they got the wins when it mattered. Now, when it comes to the U.S., it is a little bit of a different story. Only one of their wins has come against a team who's currently in a playoff spot, and surprisingly enough, that's Turkey, their first match of the tournament, but they've beat Germany, they've beat Canada, Cuba, Iran, and Serbia, losing to Japan and then losing to Italy in week 1 as well. But the thing is that when you put these teams in their stats, after 8 matches, head to head, it is very, very similar. As I mentioned, these are two of the best scoring teams. Japan is third in overall scoring, averaging 16.57 points per set. The US is fourth in scoring, averaging 16.56 points per set. So there's essentially nothing that separates these two teams. Same things with unforced errors. Japan is second overall, just making 5.09 unforced errors per set. The US is third overall, making 5.16 unforced errors per set. So that's nothing. Surprisingly enough, we always view Japan as this very good ball control team. And I mean, technically they are. They're fifth in positive passing and 11th in perfect passing, but the US has been outstanding in serve receive, third in both positive passes and perfect passes with a 49% positive and 26% perfect, which leads to them being able to really open up their offense. But Japan has the edge. They lead the VNL so far in kills per set, averaging 13.49 kills per set. The US, not too shabby either. They're in fifth at 13.06. Interestingly enough, Japan has a slightly higher kill percentage with a 52.25, while the US is a 51.16. There is really nothing that separates like the top 8-9 teams in the VNL right now. But the US has a slightly higher efficiency with a 39.29%, whereas Japan has a 38.44%. And this just comes down to the fact that the US makes slightly less errors. They're only averaging 3.03 attack errors per set. Now that is unforced attack errors as well as blocked. So just something to note. It's not fully representing and when you compare it to unforced errors, because unforced errors is just missed attacks and missed serves. And then obviously the US, as we can understand, is one of the best blocking teams in the world. They're third in block touches per set, second in block points per set, and second in overall blocks per set, whereas Japan, not really known for their blocking prowess, are 7th, 16th, and 14th overall in the VNL. The average rank for the US is 4.5 in every single category, whereas Japan is 6.25, which is very, very high. The US actually has the highest average rank in the VNL in these categories alone, whereas Japan is third. So once again, there is very little that separates these two teams when looking at the stats. Now, interestingly enough, neither of these two teams have actually ever won the VNL. This would be the first time for either of them if they were able to do so. The US has 3 silvers and a bronze, nothing since 2023, whereas Japan has a little bit more success recently, a silver back in 2024 and a bronze back in 2023. This tournament has only ever been won by Poland, France, Brazil, and Russia. And Russia's not even around at the moment. We're still a long way from the intercontinental round of the VNL from being done, right? We're only 2/3 of the way through the tournament, and a lot can happen in just 1 week. Just ask Brazil. But right now, the US being at a 1-2, if they were able to hold that, they would not meet until the finals. And now I know there's some other really good teams out there. I mean, that top 5 in particular have been really, really strong, but there is a potential to have a volleyball world's wet dream of USA against Japan in the VNL finals. Now, as I mentioned before, the first 2 weeks for the US haven't been that difficult, but in week 3, it will be getting a little more difficult. However, they do have the advantage of hosting at home in Chicago, so that will definitely give them a boost. In week 3, they'll have to take on China, which China is statistically the worst team in the VNL, but they are not terrible. They gave the US a hard time last year in Chicago. Then they'll be taking on Brazil. Now, Brazil did have a pretty terrible week number 3, but you know they are going to be really, really tough in pushing to try to make the playoffs. Then they'll have a rematch of the World Championship quarterfinals against Bulgaria, and that one will be a highly anticipated match as both Alex Nikolov and Moni Nikolov make their return to the US for the first time since they won championships with Long Beach. So you know that one will be really big, and Bulgaria has been cooking. They took down Italy this past week and they have looked very, very good. And then finally, they will be facing off against Poland. Now, at this rate, it looks like these two teams are going to be slated to face off against each other in the semifinals of the VNL finals. So that would be really, really good. But we know that USA Poland in Chicago is essentially a home match for Poland. So how will US be able to handle the pressure against the number 1 team in the world who's also playing some pretty good ball right now? I think week number 3 will be very, very interesting just to see just how real and legitimate a run to the finals are for this American team. On the other side, Japan will also be hosting at home in in week number 3, and they have a much easier schedule. Sure, they have to open things up against Italy, who are currently in 5th in the VNL. However, this Italian team has not been the same. They went 2-2 this past week, losing to Ukraine and Bulgaria. Now, it will really depend on who Italy brings for week number 3. We definitely won't be seeing Micheletto, but maybe we'll see Simone Gianelli, which could be a huge boost. But regardless, that'll be very interesting to watch. And then after that, it gets a lot easier for Japan. They take on Canada, Belgium, and Argentina, all teams who are under 500, and they get to do so at home as well. And now we haven't seen Takita yet. Maybe he's going to come back for week 3, which would be a huge boost to this team. You know, that's one of the big things if you're looking at a potential matchup between these two teams. Japan still has the ability to bring in Masahiro Sakita. And if they do, that will drastically change the offense. They already have one of the best offenses in the VNL. What happens when they bring in their maestro, their conductor, the straw that stirs the drink for them? How much better are they going to get? And the other side of that is Yuki Ishikawa clearly hasn't been at his best yet. What does this Japanese team look like once he starts playing that way? And if they can get into that top spot and maybe avoid Poland in the semifinals, that's only good things for Japan. Because right now, especially with the majority of the Polish roster coming back, I think they are the best team to potentially take down Japan, who is the only undefeated team so far. So if Japan can avoid Poland in the earlier rounds of the playoffs, I think they have a very good shot of making it to the finals and potentially winning their first gold medal. But on the other side, this matchup against Japan, I think actually left me wanting a little bit more from the US. And I think they have it with them, especially as things start to figure out, especially if they're going to be playing in an arena with air conditioning. That can make a big difference. So I honestly think this American team has a really good shot of making the finals. And I do not think it's that crazy to think that there could be a rematch in China on August 2nd. But what do you guys think? If you agree or you disagree, let me know down in the comments. As always, make sure you give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe to Volleyball Source. Hit that bell button to make sure you get all of the notifications. Come join us on the Volleyball Source Discord, and then follow me over on Twitch at That Volleyball Guy. We get a week off from the VNL this week. The women go down again next week, and the men's kick off on July 15th. So make sure you tune in. We'll see you then, and we'll see you soon too.